Senior-directed stories. Adaptations of children's stories directed by ERHS Seniors.
Emerald Ridge Theater presents The Velveteen Rabbit, based on the book by Marjorie Williams, directed by Sarah Harrison.
There once was a Velveteen Rabbit, and in the beginning he was splendid. He was fluffy and bunchy as a rabbit should be. His coat was spotted brown and white, he had real threaded whiskers, and his ears were lined with pink sateen. On Christmas morning, he sat wedged in the top of the boy's stocking with a sprig of holly stuck between his paws. There were other things in the stocking, of course, but the rabbit was the best of all. The boy loved the rabbit, until the next present was placed in his hands. Then the rabbit was forgotten. For a long time, the Velveteen Rabbit lived in the toy cupboard or on the nursery floor. He was naturally shy, and being made of only velveteen, some of the more expensive toys quite snubbed him.
Mechanical toys are superior. I may be old, but I could work if I really wanted to. The boy needs to take me out to the pond. That will show you. I'm a working model boat, and if there were tiny people, we would go and sail across the sea. I could do that, no doubt about it. What can you do?
I don't know. I don't have any clockwork like you. I did not know real boats existed. Do real rabbits exist?
What a dumb bunny.
Many of the toys were like the model boat, laughing at the pitiful rabbit who knew nothing of the world. Between all of them, the poor little rabbit was made to feel insignificant and common. The only plaything who was kind to him was the rocking horse.
The rocking horse had lived longer in the nursery than any of the others. He was so old that his brown coat had become patchy and showed the seams underneath, and most of the hairs in his tail had become coarse and matted. He was wise, for he had seen a long succession of mechanical toys arrive to boast and swagger, and, by, break their mainsprings and pass away, and he knew that they were only toys that would never turn into anything else. For nursery magic is very strange and wonderful, and only those playthings that are old, wise, and experienced, like the rocking horse, understand all about it. One day, the Velveteen Rabbit got up the courage to ask the horse something that he was dying to know the answer to.
What is real? Does it mean having things click and clang inside you?
Real is not how you are made. It's a thing that happens to you. When a child loves you for a long, long time, not just as a toy, but really loves you, then you become real.
Does it hurt?
Sometimes, but when you are real, you do not mind being hurt.
Fascinating. Will I wake up one morning and be real? Or will it take longer?
It does not happen all at once. You slowly become. It takes a long time. That is why it does not often happen to things who break easily, have sharp edges, or who have been carefully kept. Generally, by the time you are real, your hair has been loved off, your eyes may drop out, you get all loose in the joints, and you will definitely be very shabby. But these things do not matter at all, because once you are real, you cannot be ugly, except to the people who do not understand.
I suppose you are real.
Yes, the boy's uncle made me real. That was a great many years ago, but once you are real, you cannot become unreal again. It lasts for always.
The Velveteen Rabbit knew it would be a long time before this magic called real happened to him. He longed to become real, to know what it felt like, and yet the idea of growing shabby and losing his eyes and whiskers felt rather sad. He wished he could become it without these uncomfortable things happening to him.
There was a person called Butler. Sometimes he took no notice of the playthings lying about, but sometimes, for no reason whatsoever, he went swooping about like a great wind and hustled them away in cupboards. He called this
Time to tidy up.
And the playthings all hated it. One evening, when the boy was going to bed, he could not find the china dog that had always slept with him. Butler was in a hurry, and it was too much trouble to hunt for china dogs at bedtime, so he simply looked about him and spotting the Velveteen Rabbit lying in the toy cupboard, he made his swoop.
Here, take your old bunny. He will do to sleep with you.
That night, and for many nights after, the Velveteen Rabbit slept in the boy's bed. At first he found it rather uncomfortable, and he missed those long moonlit hours in the nursery when all the house was silent. But very soon he grew to like it, for the boy used to talk to him, and made nice tunnels for him under the bedclothes that he said were like the burrows real rabbits lived in. When the boy dropped off to sleep, the rabbit would snuggle down close under his warm chin and dream, with the boy's hands clasped close around him all night long. So, time went on, and the little rabbit was very happy. So happy that he never noticed how his beautiful velveteen fur was getting shabbier, and his tail becoming unsewn and all the pink rubbed off his nose where the boy had kissed him.
Spring came, and they had long days in the garden. Wherever the boy went, the Velveteen Rabbit went too. He had rides in the wheelbarrow, picnics on the grass, and lovely fairy huts built for him under the raspberry cane behind the flower border. And once, when the boy was called away suddenly to tea, the rabbit was left out on the lawn until long after dusk. Butler had come to look for him with a candle because the boy couldn't sleep unless he was there. He was soaked through from the dew and quite earthy from diving into the burrows the boy had built for him in the flower bed. Butler grumbled as he rubbed him off with the corner of his coat.
You must have your old bunny? Fancy all this fuss for a toy.
Give me my bunny, and you mustn't say that. He isn't a toy, he's real.
When the little Velveteen Rabbit heard that, he was happy, for he knew that what the rocking horse had said was true at last. The nursery magic had happened to him, and he was a toy no longer. He was real. The boy had said it himself.
Near the house where they lived, there were woods, and in the long June evenings, the boy liked to go there after tea to play. He always took the Velveteen Rabbit with him. One evening, when the rabbit was there lying against a tree alone, he saw two strange beings creep out of the tall bramble near him. They were rabbits like himself, but quite furry and brand new. They must have been very well made, for their seams did not show at all, and they changed shape in a miraculous way when they moved. Their feet patted softly on the ground, and they crept very close to him, twitching their noses. While the Velveteen Rabbit stared hard to see which side of the clockwork was sticking out, for he knew that things who jump generally have some sort of wind-up to them, but he could not see it. They were evidently a new kind of rabbit altogether. They stared at him, and the little Velveteen Rabbit stared back, and the whole time their noses twitched.
Why don't you get up and play with us?
I don't feel like it.
The poor Velveteen Rabbit did not want to explain that he had no clockwork.
Well, it's about as easy as anything.
I don't believe he can.
I can. I can jump higher than anything.
Can you hop on your hind legs?
But the Velveteen Rabbit had no hind legs at all. The back of him was all made in one piece, like a pincushion.
I don't want to.
He hasn't got any hind legs. Fancy a rabbit without any hind legs.
I do too. I have hind legs. I'm sitting on them.
Then stretch them out and show me.
No. No, I would rather sit still.
He doesn't smell right. He's not a rabbit at all.
He's not real.
Bunny, Bunny, where are you?
No. No, come back and play with me. Oh, do come back. I know I'm real.
For a while, the Velveteen Rabbit lay there still, hoping they would come back, but they never did. Eventually, the boy found his rabbit and carried him home. Weeks passed, and the little rabbit grew very old and shabby, but the boy loved him just as much. He loved him so hard that he loved all his whiskers off. His coat started to fade, and his ears began to look very ragged. He scarcely even looked like a rabbit at all, except to the boy. To him, he was always beautiful, and that was all that mattered. He did not mind how he looked to other people, because the nursery magic had made him real. And when you are real, shabbiness does not matter. But then, one day, the boy became ill.
The boy's face grew flushed, and his little body was so hot that it burned the rabbit when he held him too close. Strange people came and went in the nursery, and a light burned all night. It was a very long, weary time, for the boy was too ill to play. But the little rabbit snuggled in and waited patiently for a time when the boy would be well again. Eventually, the fever faded and the boy got better. He was able to sit up and look at picture books, while the little rabbit cuddled close to his side. And one day, they let him get up and get dressed. It was a bright, sunny morning, and the windows were wide open. The boy left the nursery, and now the only thing that remained was to carry out the doctor's orders. The room had to be disinfected, and all the books and toys the boy had played with must be burnt. The Velveteen Rabbit was hidden under bed sheets, but Butler had spotted him.
How about his old bunny?
That? Why, it's a mass of scarlet fever germs. You must burn it all at once.
Are you sure? This is, after all, the boy's most treasured toy.
Oh, what ridiculous nonsense. Get him a new one. He mustn't have that one anymore.
And so the Velveteen Rabbit was put into a sack with other toys and lots of rubbish and carried out to the end of the garden. It was a fine place for a bonfire. Only the gardener was too busy to attend to it, but he promised to come the next morning quite early and burn it all.
That night, the boy slept in a different bedroom, and he had a new bunny to sleep with him. It was a splendid bunny, all plush with real glass eyes. While the boy was asleep, the Velveteen Rabbit lay in the sack feeling very lonely. The sack had been left untied. Wriggling a bit, he was able to get his head through the opening and look out. He shivered a bit. By now his coat had worn so thin and threadbare from hugging that it was no longer any protection to him. He thought about those long sunlit hours in the garden, how happy he and the boy were, and a great sadness came over him. He thought about the wonderful day when he first knew he was real. He thought of the rocking horse, so wise and gentle, and all that he had told him. Of what use was it to be loved, lose one's beauty, and become real, if it all ended like this?
A tear, a real tear, trickled down his little shabby velvet nose and fell to the ground. Then a strange thing happened, for the tear had fallen on the bud of a flower. Presently, when the tear fell on the bud, the flower bloomed, and out stepped a fairy. The sight was so beautiful the little rabbit forgot to cry, and just laid there watching. She was quite the loveliest fairy in the world. Her dress was made of slender green leaves, and there were flowers round her neck and in her hair. Her face was like the most perfect flower of all. She came close to the rabbit and gathered him in her arms. She kissed him on his velveteen nose that was damp from crying. The rabbit looked at her, and it seemed to him that he had seen her face before, but he could not think of where.
I am the nursery magic fairy, poor little rabbit. I take care of all the playthings that the children have loved. When they are old and worn out and the children do not need them anymore, then I come and take them away with me to turn them real.
Wasn't I real before?
You were real to the boy because he loved you. Now you shall be real to everyone else.
The fairy held the Velveteen Rabbit close and flew him to the woods. She took him to an open glade between the tree trunks, where the wild rabbits danced with their shadows on the velvet grass. But when they saw the fairy, they stopped dancing and stared at her.
I have brought you a new playfellow. You must be very kind to him and teach him all he needs to know about being a real rabbit, for he is going to live with you forever and ever.
She kissed the little rabbit again and put him down in the grass.
Run and play, little rabbit.
But the little rabbit sat quite still for a moment and never moved. He did not know, when the fairy kissed him, that she had changed him altogether. Just then something tickled his nose, and without thinking he reached up to scratch it. His limbs moved. Oh, what beautiful hind legs he had gained as well, instead of the dingy velveteen he once had. He now had shiny and soft brown fur. His ears twitched by themselves, and his whiskers were so long that they brushed the grass. He was a real rabbit at last.
Autumn passed, and winter. And in the spring, when the days grew warm and sunny, the boy went out to play in the woods behind the house. While he was playing, 2 rabbits crept up from the bramble and peeked at him. One of them was brown all over, but the other had strange markings under his fur, as though he had once been spotted and the spots still showed through. There was something familiar about his little nose and his round black eyes, so familiar that the boy thought to himself,
Why, he looks just like my old bunny that was lost when I had scarlet fever.
he never knew that it really was his old bunny, come back to look at the child who had first helped him to be real. Hi, I'm Jaden, and I played the Velveteen Rabbit.
Hi, I'm Lana, and I played the little boy and the model boat.
Hey everybody, I'm Gavin, and I played the rocking horse and the doctor.
Hi, I'm Cody Deaver, and I played the butler and Real Rabbit number 1.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I played the nursery magic fairy and real rabbit too.